The rain had been falling for days over the quiet town of Maplebrook, washing the color out of the sky and leaving everything in muted shades of gray. On the top floor of a brick apartment building, 28-year-old Ethan Cole sat by his window, a cup of coffee cooling beside him, the light from his laptop casting a pale glow on his tired face. He wasn't doing anything in particular, just scrolling through social media, watching the lives of others unfold in snapshots of laughter, parties, and togetherness. He didn't hate people, he just didn't understand them anymore. Ethan used to have friends, college roommates, coworkers, even a girlfriend once. But somewhere along the line, messages stopped being answered, invites stopped coming, and silence became easier than small talk. He told himself he liked it this way. He liked his own company. But on nights like this, when the sound of the rain filled every corner of his apartment, even his reflection looked like a stranger. Across town, in an elementary school lit by flickering hallway lights, Jessica Hart sat alone at her desk, long after her students had gone home. The classroom was colorful, decorated with drawings and crafts that her third graders had made for her, smiling stick figures holding hands, houses with sunshine, rainbows that looked almost real. She ran her fingers over the artwork and smiled softly. But that smile faded as she realized how much of her life was spent surrounded by children instead of people her own age. Her coworkers had invited her to dinner again that evening. She'd smiled, thanked them, and lied that she had grading to finish. In truth, she just didn't know how to fit in. Conversations always felt like dances where she didn't know the steps. She'd listen, nod, and try to laugh at the right times, but somehow, she always felt invisible. In another part of Maplebrook, Mark Bennett, a 61-year-old retired firefighter, sat in his garage with an open toolbox and a half-finished radio on the workbench. The house was too quiet now. His daughter lived 3 states away, his wife had passed 5 years earlier, and most of his old firefighting crew had drifted out of touch. He still had their photos, smiling faces, arms around each other, all wearing soot-covered helmets. Sometimes he'd talk to those photos, just to hear the sound of his own voice. He told himself he didn't need anyone. He'd done his part for the world. He'd saved lives, pulled people from fires, stood in the heat and smoke and chaos. But when the adrenaline was gone, when the calls stopped coming, there was nothing left but the echo of what used to be. And then there was Lena Brooks, 21, a college student with bright red hair and a sarcastic sense of humor that made her seem bold to everyone who didn't know her. She had hundreds of followers online, always posting jokes, memes, and photos with fake smiles. People liked her posts. No one really knew her. Every time someone tried to get close, she'd pull away before they had the chance. She didn't trust easily. She told herself she didn't need anyone. But deep down, she was terrified of being alone. 4 people, different ages, different stories, but the same kind of loneliness running through their veins like an invisible thread. One evening, an online post appeared on Maplebrook's community board. Human Connection Group. A safe place to talk. Thursdays, 6 p.m. at the public library. Ethan saw it first while scrolling before bed. He hovered over it, thinking it sounded ridiculous. A support group for lonely people. He almost scrolled past it, but something about those words, human connection, stuck with him. He copied the address into his phone, then shut his laptop. Jessica saw the same post a few days later. She told herself she didn't need something like that, but when she caught her reflection in the classroom window that night, her own tired eyes staring back, she realized maybe she did. Mark found a printed flyer taped near the hardware store. He laughed under his breath. Human Connection Group, he muttered. Guess that's what they call it now. But he took the flyer home anyway, folded it neatly, and left it on his kitchen counter where he couldn't help but see it. Lena saw the post on her college bulletin board. Her psychology professor had mentioned it during a lecture about loneliness. It's not weakness to want connection, he'd said. That sentence stayed with her. She didn't tell anyone, but she marked her calendar for Thursday. The night of the meeting, the library's community room glowed softly with warm light. There were folding chairs arranged in a circle, a few snacks on a side table, and a handwritten sign taped to the door, all are welcome. Ethan was the first to arrive. He sat near the edge of the circle, pretending to scroll his phone. A few minutes later, Jessica entered quietly, clutching her purse like a shield. Then Mark came in, nodding politely at everyone before taking the seat farthest from the door. Finally, Lena slipped in last, wearing her headphones and keeping her eyes on the floor. The facilitator, Drive, Claire Anderson, a kind-faced woman in her 40s, smiled warmly. "Thank you all for coming. You're not here because something's wrong with you," she said gently. "You're here because you're human, and humans need connection. Tonight, we'll just talk. No pressure." There was a long silence before Ethan spoke first. "I'm Ethan," he said quietly. "I don't really know how to make friends anymore." Jessica nodded slightly. "I get that," she said. "It feels like everyone already has their people. Like you're showing up to a movie halfway through." Mark crossed his arms. "Yeah, well, maybe some of us just got tired of trying. People change. They move on." Lena smirked softly. "Or maybe people just suck," she said, her tone half joking but her eyes serious. Dr. Anderson smiled, unbothered. "Maybe. Or maybe we all have patterns, traits, that make connecting harder. Not because we're bad people, but because we learn to protect ourselves in certain ways." The group didn't know it yet, but that night would be the first time they'd start to see themselves clearly. Over the next few weeks, their stories unfolded. Ethan was the type who overthought everything. Every text, every glance, every silence, he dissected it like a puzzle. He feared rejection so much that he avoided any situation where it might happen. Whenever he met someone new, he expected it to go wrong, and somehow, it always did. Jessica was the perfectionist, always believing she had to earn friendship by being useful, kind, or flawless. If she made even a small mistake in conversation, she'd replay it in her head for days. She carried herself with quiet grace but built invisible walls so high that no one could reach her heart. Mark had grown emotionally guarded. Decades of loss had taught him that caring too deeply only led to pain. So he smiled politely, kept conversations shallow, and stayed in control. He told himself he was strong. But what he really was lonely. Lena, for all her confidence, was deeply self-critical. She believed no one could truly like her if they really knew her. So she performed, always funny, always sharp, always pretending not to care. But when the lights went off, she felt small. Dr. Anderson noticed the patterns. "You all protect yourselves," she said one evening. "That's natural, but protection can become isolation if we never take off the armor." At first, the group met in silence, awkward and hesitant. But over time, something shifted. They began to share small things, a memory, a regret, a truth. They began to see pieces of themselves reflected in each other. Ethan realized he wasn't the only one who felt left behind. Jessica started laughing more. Mark began bringing coffee for everyone. Lena started showing up early instead of sneaking in late. One night, Drive, Anderson asked them each to describe what friendship meant to them. Ethan said softly, "It's when you don't have to pretend." Jessica smiled. "It's when you can sit in silence and it's not awkward." Mark nodded. "It's trust. Real trust." Lena shrugged. "It's when someone still likes you after you've shown them who you really are." Dr. Anderson smiled. "That's connection. And it starts with understanding yourself." As weeks turned into months, the group became more than a meeting, it became a lifeline. They started seeing each other outside the library. Jessica invited everyone to her school's art fair. Ethan helped Mark set up a website to sell his handmade radios. Lena asked Jessica to visit her campus art show. One cold December night, they all met at a diner after the session. Snow was falling outside, painting the streets white. The diner was nearly empty except for them. "Funny," Mark said, stirring his coffee, "how I used to think being alone was strength. Turns out, it's just fear with good PR." Lena laughed. "Yeah, same. I used to think I didn't need people. But now I kind of do." Ethan looked around the table. At Mark's quiet smile, Jessica's soft laughter, Lena's sparkling eyes, and realized something he hadn't felt in years. Belonging. He wasn't healed completely. None of them were. But for the first time, they weren't alone in their loneliness. Months later, the support group grew. More people came. Different faces, different stories, but the same longing for connection. Ethan began volunteering to help new members feel comfortable. Jessica hosted art workshops for the group. Mark started mentoring young firefighters again. Lena began a podcast called Unfiltered Connections, where she talked openly about loneliness, fear, and finding real friends. One evening, during the group's anniversary meeting, Drive. Anderson stood before them and said, "When I started this, I wanted to help people understand that loneliness isn't a flaw, it's a message. It's your heart reminding you that you're meant to connect." The room was quiet for a moment, and then Ethan spoke up. "I used to think people who didn't have friends were just different. Maybe broken. But now I think they just share certain traits, things that made them careful, guarded, afraid. But those same traits can also make them kind, thoughtful, and strong once they learn how to let people in." Jessica smiled. "Maybe we're not broken. We were just waiting for the right people." Outside, the rain began to fall again, softly tapping against the library windows, the same rain that once felt lonely, now sounding almost like music. Ethan looked at his friends and realized something simple yet profound. Loneliness doesn't define you. It's just a chapter. And like all chapters, it can end. That night, as they stepped out into the rain together, laughter filled the air. In the glow of the streetlights, four people who once believed they had nothing in common now walked side by side, proof that even the most isolated hearts can find their way back to connection. Because people who don't have friends don't stay that way forever. They just need understanding, patience, and the courage to take that first small step towards someone else. And in Maplebrook, on that rainy night, four strangers proved that sometimes, that's all it takes.